Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Newcastle City Council special meeting. We are it is 6 p.m. on Tuesday, March 21. The City Council will be recessing to executive session for approximately 60 minutes pursuant to RCW 42.30.1101G to discuss matters relating to evaluation of performance of a public employee. Executive sessions are closed to the public pursuant to state law. No final actions will be taken during the executive session. Okay.
Linda?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the City of Newcastle, our regular council meeting. I'm Mayor Linda Newing, calling this meeting to order. City Council just returned from executive session, whereas we met for approximately 30 minutes pursuant to RCW 42.30.1101G to discuss matters relating to evaluation of the performance of a public employee. Executive sessions are closed to the public pursuant to state law. No final action was taken during the executive session. And with that, will you please rise and join me in the flag salute?
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before I turn it over to City Clerk White to call the roll, I do want to point out that tonight Councilmember Clark is joining us remotely. City Clerk White, will you please call the roll?
Deputy Mayor Sherlock.
Here.
Councilmember Griffin.
Here.
Councilmember Villasenor.
Here.
Councilmember Lakota.
Here.
Councilmember Charbonneau. And I'm going to call on Councilmember Clark now.
Here.
Oh, hey, we heard that. Thank you. Mayor Newing.
Here.
All 7 present and accounted for.
Thank you. We do have a quorum. And Councilmember Clark, just a reminder, we will heavily be relying on your raised hand feature, but I will try to call upon you before we move on to make sure your questions have been answered and you have and that you do have an opportunity to participate in any action taken. All right. Moving on to item 3, agenda approval. Is there any objection to approval of tonight's agenda as presented? Okay, seeing none, please show the final agenda approved as presented. Moving on to public comment. Do we have anybody signed up, City Clerk White? Okay, and any virtual tonight, Director Bronze?
Madam Mayor.
Okay, everyone's enjoying the sunshine. So with that, any members who did not sign up wishing to make public comment? Okay, I'll close the public comment. Tonight we have no ceremonial presentations, so council comment. Councilmember Clark, I'm going to defer to you first, so I don't forget you.
Thank you, Mayor Newing. No comment made tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Charbonneau, what do you have for us?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I had a ton of fun going in to jump in and referee the Risdon Middle School versus McKnight Middle School wrestling match, and being on call is just the resident person who knew the sport. A lot of great parents that were very supportive, and a lot of kids, boys and girls, getting after it. I wanted to elevate as well to Chief Kajihiro has done a really great job trying to get out into community, and he's having his event, I believe it's tomorrow. Coffee with the chief. I've personally enjoyed very much getting to talk with him, and it's been very insightful and enjoyed getting to hear from him. And then I've been, the last couple weekends, been very glad to actually go out onto our Newcastle trails. I went to, since we had the Dalpay property, I went to actually go hike that trail to give myself the experience, and I'm really glad the weather is turning and seeing a lot of people out on those trails. So I would encourage folks to get outside as well. We have a lot of trails tucked away in neighborhoods and behind houses even that you might not expect that connect to quite an extensive network. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Lakota?
No comments, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Villasenor?
Thank you. It is our first meeting of spring, so it's not a bad deal. And many of us are starting to see our neighbors for the very first time in a good long while. So as the weather improves, I hope people get a chance to start reconnecting with the people in their neighborhoods. It's also a good time to adopt a drain, a program that I really enjoy supporting. I have adopted 2 drains on my street. and I've been diligently cleaning them each week when my yard waste hits the curb. So it's pretty easy to do. So if you have a drain in your neighborhood, I would really encourage you to go up on the website. There's information on the city website, but adopt a drain and keep your street looking nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Griffin.
Thank you, Mayor Newing. I've had some people asking about when we might be expecting to get a financial snapshot so that the people can get a look at what happens with the finances. Anytime soon would be hopeful. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Sherlock.
No comment, thank you.
All right, moving on, Mayor's report. So I also have in my notes here that tomorrow is coffee with our chief. It'll take place at 8 a.m. at Starbucks at the Commons. Hopefully you can get out and meet our chief if you haven't done so already. I welcome him back to Newcastle. Also, last week I attended a very well-attended Chamber After Hours event. A lot of fun at Frosty Barrel that night. A lot of people I hadn't seen in a while. So the Chamber events are actually migrating to a quarterly schedule. The luncheons are the first month of the quarter, I believe now. And then they are trying to do an after hours event once a quarter as well. So hopefully you can stop by, meet a lot of great business leaders in the community, our chamber members, and maybe take in a couple of treats at locations like Frosty Barrel. And with that, I don't have anything. Any council committees? Finance committee?
Finance committee will be meeting next week, I believe. Yes.
Okay,
So
all right, and no
hopefully
salary?
Hopefully we'll be able to meet Councilmember Griffin's requests for some additional financial information.
Okay, and no salary and benefits committee meeting. Any regional committees? Councilmember Charbonneau, what do you have?
Locally, we will have Economic and Community Development Committee meeting tomorrow, and we will have some folks from King County coming to speak, and folks from the public are absolutely welcome.
My apologies, I have forgotten about that, so I'll get used to it, I promise. I won't leave you out in the cold anymore. All right, in any regional committees? Councilmember Clark, any MISWAC?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we had a meeting. I'm sorry, I've been so busy with my day job that I haven't compiled any notes. I'll try to get something out soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, quiet week on the regional level. Community activities report, our chair is not with us tonight, but you do have a report in your packet, so I'll turn it over to City Manager Pingle for his report. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Beyond what's in the city manager report, just a couple of things wanted to bring to your attention. Newcastle Trails annual business meeting is coming up on Tuesday, March 28th at 6:30. Just wanted, they asked me to come and say a few things at the beginning of their meeting. We also, speaking of Newcastle Trails, they had their first event with additional volunteers that they've had in a really long time this past weekend. We were able to get them a really good load of rock. They were very appreciative of that, and so just wanted to bring attention to that. It's been a long time since we've had more than a volunteer for the trails, just as we've worked through that volunteer process. And then I did want to note that we heard that this week the Senate capital budget came out, and we have $824,000 allocated to the Crosstown Trail project. I just want to make sure everyone understands that's just the Senate capital budget. Next week, the House capital budget comes out. But the great thing about that news is that we're in the conversation for the final budget. It would be great if we're in the House capital budget as well. That kind of finalizes it, but we have the argument now that we can go make to be in the final budget for that project, and so that's great. Also, next week, both the House and the Senate transportation budgets come out.
All right, thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda, is there any objection to approval of tonight's unanimous consent agenda as presented? Okay, if not, please show the consent agenda approved as presented. And we are down to, we have no public hearings, no unfinished business, general business item 11.1. Discussion and potential adoption of resolution 2023-939, City of Newcastle 2023 strategic plan. I'm going to turn this over to City Manager Pingle.
Thank you, Mayor. So, yeah, just want to introduce kind of our approach with this, and at least for the community's benefit, but also maybe as a refresher for the council as far as what our council retreat discussion was. We liked, for the actual strategic plan that's behind the agenda bill and the resolution, this is the model that the council talked about that they liked. And so essentially, we have 6 goals. Those goals are essentially what the council determined is the city that we want to be or become. And so those goals, the approach with those goals is that those are semi-permanent. Those we don't anticipate those to change or change much from year to year. What will change is the objectives underneath each goal, which is how we're going to move towards that goal or meet that goal. And so each goal and the objectives under those are categorized with a priority. And so priority ones are things that we're either doing this year or we're going to budget for in the next year. Priority twos are we're going to get those done in the next 2 to 3 years. Priority threes would be further out, 3 to 5 or longer. And then priority fours are routine things or things that we do every year. And so kind of the approach we took, if you were able to look through the resolution, is that we want to adopt the goals with the understanding that those, we don't anticipate those to change every year. And then with the objectives separately, we do anticipate that those will change or that goals will come on and come off. As we accomplish priority ones, those goals come off. As we move priority twos up to priority ones, the priority changes, et cetera, as we add additional things. So the objectives will adjust and change and be fluid, where the goals are more permanent. And with that, Madam Mayor, I would love any discussion or feedback, or if we need to add something or take something off or whatever we want to do with what's before you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any questions or comments for City Manager Pingle on the proposed strategic plan? Councilmember Clark, anything out there in virtual land?
Thank you, Mayor Newing. Just maybe a couple quick questions. So the I'm sorry, scanning through here. There was a note in here about possibly making a biennial budget. I mean, I don't recall us ever talking about that. Is that something you're familiar with, City Manager, and what would be the reason for wanting to do that?
So part of our discussion at the retreat was the things that were on our most recent strategic goals and priorities. That was one of the things that was still there. And so we tried to keep those, unless they fell easily into something else we had talked about. I tried to keep those, and with the knowledge that we would, if we want to take any of those off or keep them, we could have that discussion right now. So that was something that had been on the strategic goals and priorities previously. On that subject, though, it is certainly something that I think can be beneficial. It'd certainly be something for the council to hash out a bit, and for staff to provide council additional information on. But the reason that it's there is simply because it was there previously.
Do you have experience with that? Is that something, I mean, I obviously we'd have to discuss it and get more information, but do you have experience with that?
So I don't have experience transitioning from an annual to a biennial budget. I do have experience both with a biennial and with an annual budget.
Okay. the second question I have is under a safe community. I would think that developing a crime prevention plan would be more of a priority than a 2. That's the only other comment that I have.
Okay. Yeah, and so we can certainly change, that's what we wanted as part of the discussion. If we want to change priorities, and we should hash that out a little bit. On the crime prevention plan, the only reason that was a 2 was simply because it wasn't something that we've talked about yet. And so it wasn't something that we're actively doing this year, but it certainly could be considered a 1 if we're gonna either plan to get that done in the rest of the year or get it, or plan to get it done next year, which is, our timeframe is a little different as far as getting the strategic plan out, just because we'll also have, we should have an additional discussion once we get closer to budget season. And just to, if we were gonna make any tweaks or we wanna budget anything specifically, that would, adjust objectives and whatnot. And so certainly if we wanted to plan on that being something for 2024, it could be a priority 1. It was just not, the only reason it was a 2 is because we hadn't talked about it at all, at least in the 6 months that I've been here.
Okay, so to be clear, these objectives in each goal, we will review these on a regular basis at study sessions, if I read that agenda correctly, is that right?
Yeah, so, yes, that's what I would hope. My preference would be that at least once a year, obviously, but it should be something that gets put back in front of the council. I would say twice a year is ideal. It's not something that we want to look at every month or have changes all the time, just because then staff can't keep up with that. But certainly it should be something that becomes regular.
Okay, thank you, no more questions.
Any other questions? Councilmember Charbonneau?
Thank you. So under the sort of safer community bucket, and I don't think it necessarily belongs there, but I'm saying that as the framework because that's what a lot of other municipalities have done. I would love to see a long-term item about how we address mental health crises as a city. There was one that was handled by our officers just a couple years ago. There are 5 cities in North King County that have come together to form a coalition to work on those things. Sort of how is there, and the reason I put it safer community as well too is that a lot of places have paired it in tandem with their police department. So I think this is something I talked about with Chief Hauk before he left. There are more resources out there now in terms of a number you can call, as well as this is something I've talked about briefly with Chief Kajihiro, as he has a master's degree in counseling.
Yep.
And as a certified sort of peer counselor myself, this was something that we were talking about. So I'd love to see this as part of our strategic vision of looking at how do we address mental health crises as a city in a safe way long term. I think we have a lot of good resources, right? There's, our police have a specific dedicated resource when it comes to domestic violence. There's a specific dedicated resource in different sort of other situations. So I would love to see that sort of bullet point added, although it's more of a nuanced item.
Yeah, we're certainly lacking any 3s in our plan right now, and so I'd love to add one of those.
Councilmember Villasenor, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Under Goal F of leverage Newcastle resources to provide recreation, implement the Lake Bourne Master Plan is a priority 4, which shows as a routine from year to year, although I feel I'd like to see a stake put in the ground in terms of, how long would that take to accomplish, to be able to have a schedule. I know that our park planner probably has something in his mind in terms of that, and I think that should be reflected here in this goal as well.
So we have, maybe I didn't put it in. I thought we had. So with all of our plans or capital improvement plans, kind of at least the approach I took with this first go was things that we have projects for each year would be something that is a 4 because we're going to do something about it each year. And then we would make whatever the project is for that, whether it's transportation improvement plan or capital improvement or stormwater facilities or Lake Bourne master plan, we do have projects planned out from year to year. And so whatever the project is for the next year would be the priority one, and we would list that. But the plan itself, since we're gonna implement it year to year, would be a 4 because we're gonna implement something from it every year.
Okay, so I think that, yeah, so my sense is that what I'd like to see is what are the pieces of that plan and how do they show up on this list in a timeline, in a 1, 2, 3? Versus, because we know that the plan's gonna get worked on year to year, right, overall?
Right.
But what are the specific pieces?
Yeah, so right now, the one in there is the Crosstown Trail.
Mhm.
But-
Okay,
And maybe I,
but,
Isn't
but
that part of the
Lake Warren
capital?
master plan, right?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it isn't, because each project is included in the capital program, the parts,
right.
yeah.
Oh.
So they're listed in there. Did you want them on both, on this
But there are more
document as well?
pieces, right? I mean, maybe if there's
Oh,
not,
yeah.
I guess if there's no vision currently around some of the additional pieces of it, what might be queuing up behind that,
Yeah.
that we could apply a 2 or a 3 to, so that we can get an idea
We know what's
of
coming after. We can
of the
do that.
drumbeat of the overall master plan.
So I'm gonna think out loud, and I'm gonna ask Jeff to chime in too if he thinks he needs to. So for our capital improvement plans, unless we have a project that's, a phase 1, phase 2, maybe similar to Southeast May Creek Park Drive. I guess what I want to avoid is having a 15-page strategic plan because we're listing every project that's in the 5-year timeframe. Where Lake Bourne might be a little different because it's a master plan, and we could list out, okay, this year and next year's and maybe the following years because we have those planned. It would be much more difficult with our capital improvement plans just because there's so many projects in there. I guess just from a trying to be pragmatic about what we put out to the community standpoint, we don't want to list every single thing because we have our plans for that list all of those things. And so I guess I would want to differentiate between, okay, what do we want to list and what can we list the general plan for? And so.
And, I'm sorry, Jeff.
Go ahead.
No.
I was just
But
gonna
I'm
add
just-
one item that, on goal B, we have update and implement both transportation and stormwater capital improvement plans, and we could add an item like that under goal F to update and implement the parks capital improvement plan. That might, because that's broader than just Lake Bourne.
Yeah. So maybe the question for council though is, do we want to list, and I'm certainly not married to what we put in here. Do we want to list out more projects? Do we want to list out our priority 2s? Once we get into priority 3s, I think then we're listing so many projects, it'll just get lost in the mix. So I guess that's the question for council is how deep do we want to go?
Yeah, I don't want to confuse the document. I don't want to make it so dense that it becomes confusing. But I do think I like Director Braun's thought about updating it, the parks, capital improvement plan, and then, can we use this? Do we want to use this as a tool to highlight some things that are happening?
Okay. Yeah.
Without having to go into minutia regarding, big, small, little, medium. So I'm not sure this is also me thinking out loud a little bit, just to say, if this is going to be a helpful tool for us and for the community.
So
I don't
think-
know if this is enough detail, but I don't want to have too much detail.
Right. So, and I'm going to use Lake Bourne just because it's maybe it's on my mind because of what we got in the capital budget. But so for Lake Bourne specifically, we know. So Crosstown Trail is moving. We're actively trying to get additional funding for it. That's going to happen this year. Next year, we know that at least from a design standpoint, we want to at least get design, and we're going to be looking, trying to get money for design of the amphitheater and what's the other thing with the amphitheater?
The Newcastle Plaza.
The plaza. So certainly could be a priority 2, and we could list that. So I guess, again, thinking out loud and looking for feedback, maybe we go to the priority 2 level which is the 2 to 3 year time frame, and list those out. And just because that allows people to see, okay, Crosstown Trail this year, the next one after that, and the next 2 to 3 years would be, amphitheater and plaza and so forth.
I think that's exactly along the lines that I'm thinking. Thank you.
And maybe, I don't know, I'm not married to this comment by any means, but maybe at the end of the document, like after everything down here, maybe there could be links to our
Plans.
our capital plan programs. I don't know, just a thought.
Well, even putting it on the website, we could just link it in where it sits in the document. So on
Yeah, for sure.
So under goal B, where at the bottom we have the priority 4s where it's update and implement these plans, we could just link those so that they could go straight to the plans as far as when we put it on the website. Something else that that I would like to do, and it just, we can get into it more when we get into budget discussions, but going into any new budget, the budget should at least list what our priority ones are, because our priority ones should be in the budget. And so that's just an easy way to keep track of, these are things in our strategic plan that we want to accomplish in this coming year. And then they're in the budget.
Okay, any other Councilmember Charbonneau? First, before I go to you, I want to make sure there's somebody who hasn't spoken yet. Okay. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor. Oh, okay.
I was just gonna speak to what Councilmember Clark brought up about the biennial budget. That's hard to say. So I know we've talked about this in the Finance Committee. When I first started, past councils had wanted to move in that direction, but then we got ClearGov, I think is what happened, and then that kind of got put on hold a little bit just because we wanted to see how to use that software appropriately. And so I think that being on Finance Committee for the last 3+ years, I think it should stay on there to evaluate the possibility. That's just my take, because I think we haven't really done the work of evaluating it with this council, at least. I'm not even sure what the last council, why they went in that direction. So.
Yeah, so I'm happy to share just that very quickly. So the council never added biennial budget. It was a finance director, previous finance director, and my day job involves a biennial budget. I flat out love it because it is such a, look at it, the process begins in March, and hopefully by December 1, you've got a budget approved and you can just, publish that thing and be done with it. But it is a lengthy process. It's not only a lengthy process for council, it's a lengthy, intense process for staff. And a biennial budget for a city our size is probably a doable thing. And because we are a small city, we could probably benefit from it. So I would recommend retaining that item and having a discussion when we have a new finance director who has some time under their wing from being here in our city. I think it could be a very valuable conversation to have. And there were a lot of other things going on so that prevented that discussion, including a multi-year pandemic. So all kinds of fun to be had. So, all right, Councilmember Griffin, you had a comment. I'm sorry.
I did. Well, I had a question first. The question was the amphitheater and the plaza in Lake Warren. Is there room for that sort of thing? We had this discussion a few years ago, and we were talking then about a opera house there was discussion on it, and don't shake your head because there was some. And that was when Tony was here, and we had people who got up and have a public comment that people in the apartment houses says, please don't do that, because that's one place our kids have to play. We don't have yards of our own, so, you know, and I don't know if it carries any weight. They're citizens of our city, even though they're renters. But, you know, that's one thing that I see about it. I think that so far as the biennial budget is concerned, I think we're having enough problem trying to figure it out on a year-to-year thing rather than trying to guess what it is next year after, you know, 2 years at a time. And we certainly haven't had a lot of luck in figuring out how to address the sustainability of our city. And the other thing we need to remember, she said, yes, it's a small city, and it is a small city. 4.5 square miles and 14,304 citizens. So we don't have a ton of money running around here. It's not a Bellevue or somewhere else. And I did spend some time looking at strategic plans for before we had our meeting at the retreat. And the closest thing that I came to looking pretty good for us would have been Richland, but they're so much bigger than us that it was no comparison, really. So, you know, I agree with you. We probably need a strategic plan, but I don't think we can plan to spend money we don't have or don't have any ability to get. You know, we can get some money probably from the county to help some of our projects, but so far as funding it from where we are, if we can't make a budget that balances, we're in trouble. We have big trouble.
So as far as, go ahead. I'm just going to address the first question about the amphitheater and plaza. So as far as I understand, we do have that room there. It's a part of the Lake Bourne master plan. So my understanding is that the project's already been identified as far as the amphitheater and plaza. But if I'm misinformed, I'm happy to be educated about that.
No, you're not misinformed. That is part of the plan. And I consider that plan my little, you know, jewel that I would love to see some components implemented in that park. I also wanted to, I lost my train of thought. So we do have a grant application in, is that correct, Director Bronze?
Yes, that's correct, Madam Mayor. We submitted an application last Tuesday
Okay.
for phase 2 of the implementation of Lake Bourne.
Thank you, and I know that could be a sizable grant because they've doubled the funding.
That's correct. We submitted for $1 million. The previous grant that we received in 2021 was for the maximum of $500,000.
Yeah, so the city staff has been seeking grants for that project to implement components of it, and I don't think, I would not want that to be overlooked when we're considering projects or anything related to this strategic plan about Lake Bourne projects. Councilmember Lakota.
Just a quick question on the grants. Do we have to match the grant, or we can just do with the grant?
Those King County capital projects do not require a grant, or excuse me, a match, which is unique.
Okay, anything else? Councilmember Charbonneau?
Thank you. In the second line item of Goal C, Safer Community, I apologize for the wonkiness of this. I would like to, and I can move to amend it if that's necessary, I would like to not just have it say considering traffic calming for public works standards and comp plan, but traffic calming as well as pedestrian and cyclist sort of accommodations, because those are very distinctly different things. I think it's important to me too that we're not just talking about how do we slow cars down, but how do we accommodate people that want to use a bike? How do we accommodate people that are walking in a lot of these areas, and consider that in planning for the future? And I don't really see it represented in any of the other items here.
We want to, I like that. Do we want to call it pedestrian safety or pedestrian and cycling safety?
Do we
Yeah, I was
call
saying
it
like,
motorized and non-motorized? Is that appropriate? Director Bronze?
Thanks. I would actually just say to improve, provide additional opportunities for non-motorized users, something generic like that that captures both modes. And I apologize for mentioning this now, but I don't really see this as a comp plan issue, because this is more of a creating facilities, it's that the comp plan already has plenty of things in there just to support creating non-motorized facilities and projects. So the comp plan is kind of like the long-range plan, so this is what I'm hearing is something more on-the-ground implementation. So I would remove comp plan and just talk about implement traffic calming and maybe enhance opportunities for non-motorized users, something along those lines.
Thank you, Director Bronze. Yeah, I think for me, it was just having that represented in terms of the strategic plan that folks might pull up was important. So I think those are all, can we move to adopt that by like unanimous consent or something?
Unless there's opposition to it, we'll just make
okay.
we'll make the adjustment.
So, for the benefit of clarity, there's a lot of suggestions that are being made tonight.
Yeah, I think we'll bring it back.
And so I would recommend that we make updates based on the feedback and bring it back for final action. Could be on consent even at the next meeting.
Sure.
Okay?
That's exactly what I was gonna say, so I definitely concur with our city clerk, so thank you for that. Scott, so just to review, we want to leave the biennial budget on, add the, remove comp plan from goal C, and it should read something similar to consider traffic calming measures and enhance opportunities for non-motorized updates. The crime plan specific to Newcastle, it was proposed that we change the level on that to a 1.
Yep.
What am I know I'm overlooking one.
We had the mental health, we
Oh, yes.
add as a 3.
Yep. Under safe community. Okay.
And then we would add the priority to, so the 2 to 3 year timeframe projects under our capital improvement plans or Lake Bourne master plan, and we'll add the park improvement plan to the
Yep.
to the document.
Yeah, but I mean, any other edits? This looks really good, so thank you for your work on this. So we'll have the updates done and put it on the consent agenda at the, what is that, the April?
April 4th would be the next
Meeting?
meeting. So I'll get the changes done and get it out to council for any additional feedback, or if you don't like the wording or whatever, give me that feedback before then we put the agenda materials together for the April 4th meeting.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Sherlock.
Thank you. I'm just curious how this will be presented to the community. Well, obviously it'll be on the website. You talked about maybe having links in there, but it's kind of boring to look at. I'll just be honest.
This is our hard work. We spent all day on a Friday doing this.
And I mean, I don't want to add a lot of words that don't need to be there, but it might be nice to maybe have Kate look at it or something, and maybe have on the website separate from it, like leading up to it, like what does non-motorized mean? Oh, that means bicycles and pedestrians, because not everyone knows that. I mean, we all know that, but most people don't know that.
Sure.
So stuff, that's just one little example, but I'd love to see it kind of explained in a way that people can understand, and that then they can like actually take in and be excited about.
Perhaps illustrations would help.
Yeah, I think we can do that, and then it would certainly be something that anytime we have the opportunity at a public meeting, certainly at the town hall, we would make sure we brought it to the community's attention, just so that they know that it's there and where to find it.
And we can install it framed on the wall of the chambers.
Okay.
That's what we used to have. Can you tell I've been around
We'll
here a
try
long time?
We'll try to make it more exciting to look at.
In Newcastle maroon type and all of that. Okay, we are way off base here. All right, moving on, folks. Additional public comment. Nobody signed up? Anybody in the audience wishing to make public comment tonight? And how about our virtual? That's what longer
None, Madam
daylight
Mayor.
hours and sunshine do. Okay, I'll close the public comment. Planning calendar, City Manager Pingle, this one's yours.
Thanks, Mayor. Just looking at the April 4th meeting, we were looking at having a study session to talk about our 2023 Arch contribution. Again, I'm hopeful that we'll have some insight, or maybe it will have passed, but it'd be nice to have some clarity on House Bill 1628, which is the REAP for Affordable Housing Bill, just because that'll help with that conversation as far as while conversations around our 2023 contribution, certainly kind of a broader conversation helps that a little bit. And so hopefully we'll have a direction or some clarity about the status of that. And then a couple of presentations. We have a couple of proclamations coming. Waste management, as far as I understand, we're anticipating like 10 to 15 minutes on that, Jeff, for the waste management 2022 annual report. And then we're planning on putting a budget amendment in front of the council. It's possible that that gets pushed to meeting. And then the railroad embankment design that we pushed it just so that we could make sure our alternatives analysis was good to go as far as what we were putting back in front of the council. And so we'll plan on putting that on general business for that meeting, just because we got questions on it before, and so we thought rather than putting it on consent, it would be more appropriate to address those and how we're moving forward with that. So it'll be on for general business.
Okay. All right. We are to the end of the agenda. So if there's no questions on the planning calendar, all right. 7:42, meeting adjourned.